In Galicia, we're not afraid of storms. We know them. We give them names, we calculate their hours, we wait for them at the harbor with the moorings tight and a coffee in hand. My father used to say that a storm is just the sea reminding you it was here before you. But that storm was different. That storm hadn't come to remind anyone of anything. It had come to collect. The glass woke me. Not a blow against the glass. The glass itself, vibrating in its frame like the string of an instrument tuned by something enormous. The wind had changed during the night. It was no longer blowing, it was charging. It came from the northwest with a fury that wasn't meteorological but personal, as if the Atlantic had chosen this lighthouse, this cliff, this particular morning to prove something. I got up. The room was cold, colder than the stone justified. The photograph of the Santa Lucia was still on the nightstand where I'd left it before falling asleep. The 6 men on deck, smiling with that awkwardness of people who don't know how to pose. I looked at it for a moment. Then I tucked it into the inside pocket of my jacket, where no one could find it. I went down to the kitchen. It was 7:30 in the morning and the light coming through the windows wasn't light. It was a thick grey paste that didn't illuminate anything but blurred everything, as if someone had wrapped the lighthouse in dirty cotton. The sea, when I managed to make it out through the glass, was a sheet of steel that rose in 4-meter waves and smashed them against the base of the cliff with a sound you felt in your teeth. Martin was already in the kitchen. Of course. I suspect Martin hadn't slept. I suspect Martin hadn't slept for years, and that cooking was his way of negotiating with insomnia. You leave me alone and I'll give you something to do with my hands. He'd made coffee, toast, and scrambled eggs that smelled of butter and rosemary. Force 10 winds, he said without looking at me, while stirring something in a pan. I heard Lola's radio at 5. Force 10 rising to 11. Waves 6 to 8 meters. The storm doesn't let up until Monday at the earliest. Monday. It was Saturday. That meant at least 48 hours. And the signal. Martin pointed at his phone with the spatula. The screen showed a single word where signal bars should have been, no service. I checked mine. The same. The electricity went out at 3 in the morning, Martin added. Lola started the emergency generator, but it only powers the kitchen and the lantern. No outlets. No heating. So we were trapped. No signal, no stable electricity, no way out of the lighthouse until the storm decided to spare us. 7 people locked inside a stone cylinder with the sea pounding below and the wind howling above and too many secrets in between. They came down one by one. Celia appeared dressed in black, as always. She poured herself coffee, sat down, and didn't speak. But she observed. Celia always observed. She had the stillness of animals that hunt by ambush, motionless, patient, with eyes measuring distances. Hugo came down without a suit. Turtleneck sweater, jeans, sneakers. Without the armor, he seemed smaller. More human. More dangerous, because a man who removes his armor voluntarily is a man who has decided to fight a different way. The first thing he did was try his phone in every corner of the kitchen, holding it toward the ceiling, bringing it near the windows. Nothing. I watched his jaw harden. As if someone had taken away something he needed to breathe. Inns came down with the camera around her neck. Always with the camera. She filmed the storm, the coffee, the faces. For the documentary, she said. No one returned her smile. Roman was the last. He came down gripping the banister with one hand while holding his head with the other. He dropped into a chair and stared at the cup of coffee Martin set before him as if it were a math problem he didn't know how to solve. Lola didn't come down. We heard her footsteps above, going back and forth between her room and the lantern room. The rhythm of someone who does the same thing every morning and has for 20 years. A ritual. A chain. Hugo took charge without anyone asking him to. I suggest we get organized. He assigned tasks as if handing out folders in a meeting. Martin in the kitchen, Inns and Roman on the pantry, Celia and I with the flashlights. He would oversee the generator with Lola. Celia looked at him while he spoke. Then, in a neutral voice, almost casual, "You're a lawyer, aren't you?" Hugo didn't blink. "Corporate. In Madrid." "You can tell," said Celia. And she added nothing. But the sentence hung in the air like a lit match in a room full of gas. Mid-morning, Inns disappeared. Not dramatically. It wasn't that we searched for her and she was gone. I simply stopped seeing her in the kitchen, and when I asked, Martin said he'd seen her go down to the basement with the camera on. I found her in the engine room. A low, damp space with two old generators that smelled of diesel and pipes climbing the walls like the roots of an upside-down tree. The only light came from Inns's phone, projecting sharp shadows against the stone. "Look at this," she said when she saw me. She was crouching by the back wall, where the stone was older, darker, covered with a layer of moisture that gleamed under the light like sweat. And in the stone, at knee height, there were marks. 6 marks. Vertical. Carved with something sharp, deep, made with force. Like the ones prisoners make on the walls of their cells to count the days. Except these weren't counting days. Below the marks, a date. The same date. The 15th of November. The same year as the photograph of the Santa Lucia. 6 marks. 6 men on a boat. Inns looked at me. What does this mean? I could have told her. In that moment I could have opened my mouth and told her everything. But I didn't. Not yet. I still believed I could control the pace of the revelations, that I could release the truth little by little, like a poison in administered doses, until it took effect without killing anyone. "I don't know," I said. "But I think we should show this to the others." We didn't show the others. Not yet. Inns went up to review her camera footage. I stayed a moment longer in the basement, staring at the 6 marks in the stone. I knew who had made them. I knew why. But I couldn't say so without revealing things it wasn't yet time to reveal. I ran my fingers over the incisions. They were deep. Made with rage or with pain, it was hard to tell. The stone was cold. Damp. Hugo leaned back in his chair. "I don't know anything. I received a cryptic invitation and came out of curiosity. Period. Smile. Walls up. I suggest we leave the conspiracy theories for the Christmas dinner table and focus on getting through the storm without killing each other." Nobody laughed. Not even Inns, who usually smiled by default. Celia didn't push. She didn't need to. Her sentence was already working inside each of us like a drop of acid on limestone. Slow, silent, inevitable. We all know. It's just that nobody wants to say it first. The afternoon passed in a low, constant tension, like the fever of an illness that hasn't yet shown its face. Hugo shut himself in his room. Celia read by the window, or pretended to read. In 2 hours I didn't see her turn a single page. Martin cooked. Lola stayed upstairs. And Roman drank. I found him in the common room as evening fell, sunk into a cracked leather armchair, glass in hand and the bottle at his feet. The storm had turned the afternoon into premature night. The only light came from a candle on the mantelpiece. "I can tell you something I haven't told anyone," he said without looking at me. His voice was thick, but his eyes were those of someone more lucid than was good for him. I sat across from him. 20 years ago they offered me money to keep quiet. He looked at his hands. The hands that trembled. I was a journalist. One of the good ones. The kind who still believed an article could change something. He laughed, and the laugh sounded like gravel in a metal bucket. I found the story. I investigated it. I had sources, documents, proof. And then someone offered me an amount that made it unnecessary to keep being good. He took a drink. A long one, the kind that isn't a gesture but a decision. I need to tell you what I know, he said. Before it's too late. I looked at him. The candle cast shadows that aged him 10 years. The wind shook the windows. Below, the sea pounded with a cadence I was already beginning to confuse with my own pulse. Tomorrow, I told him. Tell me tomorrow. Tonight you're drunk and I need what you say to be solid. Roman nodded. He finished his glass. He stood up with the difficulty of a man who has been standing up that way for 20 years. Tomorrow, he repeated. And he went up the stairs. I still hear that tomorrow in the hospital room, at night, when I can't sleep. I hear it in his broken voice, with his whiskey breath, with his hands trembling around a secret that had been rotting inside him for 20 years. Tomorrow. I told him tomorrow. At 10 o'clock at night, Lola came down. It was the first time I'd seen her all day. She wore the same sweater, the same boots, the same severe bun. But something had changed in her face. Something had loosened, like a knot beginning to give way. I'm going to light the lantern, she said. Does anyone want to come up? We all went up except Hugo, who said he had a headache, and Roman, who had retired with the bottle. The spiral staircase trembled beneath our feet with the vibration of the wind. Climbing was like scaling the inside of an instrument that someone was playing with hands too large. The lantern room was a cylinder of glass and metal suspended over the abyss. The Fresnel lens occupied the center like an enormous eye. Lola approached it with the familiarity of someone touching a beloved body. She flipped a switch. The generator coughed below, and the light came on. Not like a light bulb, like a small, furious sun that the lens multiplied and fired toward the sea, cutting through the darkness like a knife through black silk. And it began to turn. Slowly. With the inevitability of things that have been doing the same thing for more than a century. There's no need, said Inns, not filming for the first time. The lighthouse is automated. Isn't it? Yes, said Lola. There's no need. Then why do you light it? Lola didn't answer immediately. She watched the lens turn. She watched the beam of light lose itself in the storm. Out of habit, she said. But that wasn't true and we all knew it. There was something liturgical in the way Lola lit that light. Something of penance. Something of a rosary. We sat on the floor of the lantern room, around the turning lens, and Lola spoke. Not about the invitation. About the boats she watched pass each night. About the storms she had endured alone. And about the Santa Compana. Do you know what the Santa Compana is? She asked. Her voice had changed. It was no longer the dry, practical voice of the keeper. It was older. The voice of someone telling what they were told, repeating what has been repeated since these shores had a name. It's the procession of the dead, she said. They walk at night, in a line, each one with a candle. At the front goes a living person. A mortal who has been chosen to guide them. They don't know they're guiding them. They remember nothing at dawn. They only notice the exhaustion and the smell of wax and wet earth. The wind shook the tower. The glass panels vibrated. The beam of light didn't flinch. My grandmother saw them once, Lola continued. On the cliff path. She said they smelled of salt spray and wax and something else, something that had no name but tasted like farewell. She said there were 6 men walking toward the sea with their candles lit. Nobody spoke. Inz's eyes were wide. Martin had hugged his knees. Celia watched Lola with an intensity that wasn't curiosity but recognition, as if she were hearing something she already knew but needed to hear from another mouth. They say that when the Compana walks, said Lola, and her voice dropped until it was nearly indistinguishable from the wind, someone dies before dawn. Silence. Only the wind. Only the light turning. Only the sea below, pounding, pounding, pounding. We went down in silence. Each to our room. Each carrying the weight of Lola's words and the storm howling outside and the feeling that something had come loose inside the lighthouse, something that could not be tied back. I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening. The lighthouse had its own nocturnal language, the creak of metal, the gurgle of pipes, the moan of wind searching for cracks. And beneath everything, the sea. Always the sea. At one I heard footsteps. Someone climbing the spiral staircase. Careful steps, measured, the steps of someone who doesn't want to be heard. Then, nothing. At 2 I heard a door. Not the lantern room door, which was metal and squeaked. Another door. Lower down. At 2:30, the generator shut off. Complete darkness. Only the intermittent glow of the lantern beam above, which must have had its own battery, because it kept turning, turning, throwing a pale flash each time it passed over my window. Flash. Darkness. Flash. Darkness. Like a heartbeat of light. And at 3, the scream. Not a scream of fright. Not the scream of someone startled by a noise. A scream of something deeper, more visceral. The scream of someone who sees something that shouldn't exist. Or the scream of someone who understands, too late, that they should have spoken when they could. I jumped out of bed. I stepped into the hallway. Doors were opening around me, Martin with eyes wide, Celia with a flashlight, Inns barefoot and pale. Who screamed? Asked Martin. Nobody answered. We counted heads. Celia. Martin. Inns. Me. Hugo came out of his room a moment later. Disheveled. The eyes of someone who has just woken up. Or of someone who wants it to look like they just woke up. What's going on? Where's Roman? I asked. His door was open. The bed, rumpled. The bottle on the nightstand, empty. But Roman was gone. Lola came running down from the second floor. She said nothing. She only looked up, toward the staircase leading to the lantern. We went up. In single file. In silence. With our hearts in our throats and fear in our legs. The door to the lantern room was wide open. The wind poured in like a crazed animal, tearing howls from the metal, hurling horizontal rain that cut our faces. From the stairwell, the lantern beam kept turning, sweeping the night as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. I felt it before reaching the last step. I felt it in the air, in the temperature, in the smell. The smell of the sea rushing in through a door that shouldn't have been open. And Lola's eyes, which weren't looking at the staircase but beyond, toward the lantern, with the expression of someone who has been waiting 20 years for exactly this. That's what I remember before climbing the last step. The wind. The light turning. And Lola's face, which already knew what we were going to find. The next chapter will be released when we reach 10. 10 people listening. 10 witnesses. Subscribe. For Roman. Who wanted to talk tomorrow, and tomorrow came for him too soon.